There we go, recording in progress. Hello and welcome to another live Q&A. I'm Nikki Scott from UK Hypopressives, and this is my kind of once a month chat, hopefully with a subject that interests you. And tonight it's all about menopause and mental health. And we have Donna Richardson, who's going to be doing a small presentation. She's going to introduce herself. She's going to do a little presentation and take any questions. So all those that are present, make sure you've got some questions ready. And I'm just going to hand that over to you. And there we go.
The host. Nice.
Now the host.
Go. The host. Scary. Hello, ladies. So just, do I need to be the main person? No. A quick précis of me. I've worn many hats. Pre-children, I used to work in mental health, so I did mental health outreach work. I trained as a counsellor, so I did some voluntary work in a refuge for women's aid. And then I had my children and took a bit of a break and then retrained as a PT. And then as I've gone through menopause myself, I did my research and went, oh my goodness, if I'm struggling with this, other women must be too. And the course I chose was lovely. Beryl Education is all about women's wellness, and everything that I was learning was massive head nodding moments. And I just wanted to give that to other women, that if I, with all of my knowledge that I have, that I've accumulated through the years of having children, of working in mental health, of fitness and health, if I struggled with it, I wanted to somehow be able to give that information to women who are also struggling. I've chosen mental health because my personal experience of mental health was after my first child. And I had postnatal depression, which was really quite debilitating and totally threw me. And that's how I came into fitness, because actually my health visitor and my GP suggested there was a local gym that had a creche, and they said, do you know what, you need to go to the gym, put your child in that creche for an hour, he won't die, you won't die, and you will get your headspace back again. So I did, and kind of held on to that fitness as my kind of mental health anchor since then. So I've now got 3 children. My eldest is nearly 19. And that's why I came into being a PT as well, because I wanted to go back to work, but I was kind of afraid to let the fitness go. So it makes sense to work in fitness and keep that going. Menopause wise, I guess my problem, and what I think a lot of women's problem is, I didn't recognize that would happen to me. The narrative out there that the average age is 51, even GPs think that means that's when it starts. But actually the average age of 51 is the point at which you hopefully have had 12 months without a period. And at that point, they say you are menopausal. And then theoretically, the next day, you're postmenopausal, which you would be for however many years. But they don't recognize the fact that perimenopausal state can happen from 40 plus. And if I didn't know that, I'm pretty sure a lot of other women don't know that either. And the fact that I was so fit and healthy and did all the right things, I was eating well, I was training all the time, it still hit me like a brick wall, because the other things in my life weren't conducive to a good menopause, which I will talk about later. But that's kind of my journey into menopause and why I want to share that message to you ladies. Awesome. So Before I start the presentation, was there any specific reason any of you wanted to come and hear this? Was there anything that you want me to touch on, or shall I just do my presentation and hope that I answer some of your kind of queries? Yes. Oh, how do I?
You have to ask Amanda to unmute if she's muted.
Could you unmute yourself?
Yeah, I'm unmuted.
Yep.
One of mine is I'm through menopause now, but the one thing I've not really found an answer to, and I'm just so curious about, is the loss of memory. Do you know, I can be eulogizing on a subject I'm an expert in, and suddenly the name of that thing gone. So I talk all around it, but that word's gone, and it will come. You can laugh, and it will come back.
I'm thinking about myself.
Yeah, me too. And it's still, it's not quite so bad now as it was, but it's still there. And I understand my brain's got so many pathways and connectors because I'm so bloody old now that it's pretty well stuffed. But yes, you can often tell when you're with even perimenopausal women because that word just it disappears. And I would love to know why.
Okay, how do I get back onto me? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, cool. I'm rubbish at this. I'm going to touch on that because actually menopause is a brain event as much as it is a hormonal event, and that's why so many of us struggle with this brain fog. It's almost like that filter in the middle. We have that thought, it goes through the filter jumbles it up, and either the word doesn't come out or it comes out as something completely different, or we try and get thoughts through and it's kind of like wading through that fog, isn't it, to get it in there. It's such a common symptom, but it probably is one of the most frightening and debilitating at times. So absolutely, we are going to touch on that. So I've got a whole slide which will tell you what's going on. Excellent. Okay.
Amanda, do you?
Yeah, yes, I agree with the brain fog. I suffer from that as well. No, I was relieved when I stopped getting all the dreadful hot flushes and was starting to sleep better at night. But now I have awful atrophy, vaginal atrophy, which came as a big shock. So yeah, anything you can help with on that.
Can I just ask you a question, Amanda? When did you find for you that the hot sweats and the not sleeping at night? When? Just
well,
friend.
I've researched a lot, and I take things to help me. So I take CBD oil most days in capsule form.
Did you find that was the one thing, or was
that
there...
I would say, yeah, mostly, yes.
Okay.
I've recently discovered Epsom salts, magnesium baths, also wonderful. But I would say, yeah,
I find that helped me, but
you didn't.
No.
Okay, but I would, yeah. CBD oil from HealthSpan is the one I take in a capsule form, the high strength, which is actually the lower strength. Although I think they've changed that now, but yeah, that's really helped me. But yeah, anyway, for me, for now it's the dryness or atrophy is the technical term, isn't it?
Okay. And that, I mean, obviously that's not covered in the mental health presentation, but the reason you have that is because of those lower levels of estrogen.
Yeah.
And I'll also touch on it later, that once you've got past that menopausal stage, we transition to a different kind of estrogen, which isn't as strong as the one that we have in our kind of fertility years. And so absolutely things like vaginal atrophy and pelvic floor issues happen because of that.
And it does affect your mental health, I have to say. It's really getting me down.
Yeah. So the presentation won't necessarily help with that.
No, I see what you mean. Okay, yeah.
But yes, the reason you're having those symptoms is because of that change of estrogen, the lower levels. The new estrogen is much less potent and less protective than our usual estrogen in our fertility years. I mean, if if you're happy to go down a HRT route without
that's what I'm going to do.
You there are topical creams which are literally just for the vaginal area.
Oh yes, sorry, I am trying that, and it doesn't seem to be doing anything to help.
Okay.
So, sorry, I didn't realise you were just focusing mainly on mental health. I thought
yes,
it's
just a minute, but yeah, I mean, there's menopause is so huge. You could literally do a workshop on every single symptom and every single aspect of it. So it's really hard to pinpoint it down. But the one thing that seems to affect most people is the mental health of it, which is what I am focusing on. But
all right.
But Donna, what you said in the beginning, what you said in the beginning about it was a bit of a bolt out the blue because you thought, I'm fit and healthy, I'm doing all the right things, blah, blah, blah. Me too. I just want to say me too. I never felt that it, and also what I would say is the year that I had where I had no cycle, I really didn't have too many problems. I really didn't have too many symptoms, and I didn't really have a perimenopausal phase other than that. But since my cycle stopped, I feel like an old woman. Yeah, mentally I feel like an old woman, and it just seems like since that cycle has stopped, all these things have started happening that weren't happening before. I thought I was fine. I thought I was going to be good.
Well, you've sailed through,
and it's just bonkers. It really is. So yeah. Anyway, I'll let you carry on.
Okay. Right. So I will start with my presentation if I can find it. This is where I need my IT consultant, my son, to
so
get it up.
Screen share, don't you?
Yes. Right, Zach, help me.
What do you need?
My presentation.
Which one is it?
None of them.
Have you not got it up?
We are getting there. Up there. That's it. PowerPoint. Nearly there.
Yes.
Hooray. Hurrah.
Can you see that though?
Move it across the
Screen
side.
share.
Screen share. Are we on?
I need to figure out because this needs to go. Struggling myself.
Oh no.
I don't.
If the 15-year-old can't do it, we're in trouble.
Does it not come up when you press screen share? Does it not?
No, it's not coming. The presentation isn't coming up. Files.
It's not a file on it.
We had it. Is there? We're there.
Oh, here we go.
Hooray.
There we go.
Hurrah.
Oh, this needs to. There we go. I don't.
Are we in?
Mac, so.
We are in.
Hooray. Amazing.
Thank you, 15-year-old son. What would we do without them? So, oh, someone. Oh.
You could click on that.
Okay. So what is going on in menopause? Well, you've all touched on it. It is challenging. There are so many different reasons, but it is challenging. And it's really important to remember that our menopause is not happening in a vacuum. Life is going on around us. And sadly, 21st century living is not great for the menopausal transition, particularly given we've just gone through 2 years of a pandemic as well. There's absolutely, there's a correlation between stress and how we experience the menopause. And it's kind of the perfect storm that at the age that we go through menopause, that's when our life all starts to change as well. The life around us starts to change. So if we've had children, our children are becoming teenagers or they're going away to university, and we have that empty nest syndrome where we go, I'm not needed anymore. What do I do? Or we have the children finishing university coming back home, or adult children coming back home, sometimes bringing partners as well. And all of a sudden we have adult children in our lives. So we're just getting our lives back together, and we've found our space. And then we have these adult children come back into the home, and we go, that's stressful too. There are relationship changes. So as we get older and we're going through all of these changes, we reassess our relationships with our friends, with our partners, relationships with our parents change, that we almost role reverse, that our parents are possibly aging and becoming unwell and needing us to care for them. So we parent our parents. There are career changes happening round about now as well. Maybe we gave up work whilst we had the children have moved on, and we retrain, or we want to start a new career. Maybe we were part-time and now we want to ramp it up. And there's also the difficulties of, if you are in a job and, as we've mentioned before, the brain fog, and you're trying to have a conversation or you're trying to have a meeting and that word doesn't come out. You're sat in front of a client and you're going, can't get the name out, can't get the word out, can't explain what I need to say. You kind of start questioning your abilities, and you worry that maybe your colleagues or your clients will also question your abilities. It's a real kind of confidence shaking period of time. It really affects everything. So we have the hormonal changes going on, which they are up and down. Estrogen's going up, it's dropping, it's going up, it's dropping. Progesterone is on a steady decline. The physical changes, as Nikki said, that all of a sudden you wake up and you feel old because your body has changed with that lack of estrogen. And obviously the emotional changes, we almost need a bit of a period to grieve that menopause is an ending of one stage of our life, and we do kind of have to grieve for that youth and that facility. But then there's the positive, that with one ending, there's going to be a new beginning. We're in this next stage, in the menopause stage, for about a third of our lives. I mean, if we're lucky, we could be another 30, 40 years living in menopause. So it's a new beginning. It's almost like our third age, our power years, that we've had our childhood and the puberty, we've had our fertility years, the child raising years. And now this next stage, this is the good bit, because now we're kind of offloading a lot of those responsibilities, and the time is now for us. It is literally our third age. It's another chance. So let me go to the next one, which is not working. Okay, so I mean, this is the list of doom. Basically, everyone knows all of these symptoms. You must do. It's kind of a generic list. If I wrote this list, it would be way longer, because there are so many symptoms that people just don't realize. But as you can see, a lot of them are mental health issues. So the trouble sleeping, the mood swings, the irritability, anxiety, depression, lack of focus, poor concentration, memory. All of these are mental health issues. But if you look at the rest of the list, even the physical symptoms, they affect your mental health. If you're having hot flashes through the day, or whilst you're in a meeting or in front of a client, you don't feel great. All you can think about is that hot flush. And then when you finish, you're like, gather yourself back together again. It knocks your confidence, and it can make you feel quite depressed. Things like the night sweats and the trouble sleeping. I mean, there's a reason they use sleep deprivation as an instrument of torture, because it is hellish. So if you're suffering from that insomnia, or you're being woken with the night sweats, and we wake at 2 a.m. and the cortisol hits and the night sweat hits, and then every terrible negative thoughts starts going through your head, that is going to impact your mental health. So whilst it's a physical problem, it impacts your mental health. Things like your bloating, the weight gain, the allergies get worse, we get aches and pains, your hair starts to thin, you grow hair in places you never had it before. All of that, again, affects your self-esteem, your self-confidence. You maybe follow the usual healthy eating, fitness regime that used to work and now doesn't. It gets you down. There's lots of kind of depression-inducing symptoms there, isn't there, in that list? It's pretty hideous. Okay, but it's not all doom and gloom, honestly. So, have I gone back too far? No, there we go. So the reason I chose these subjects is because mental health is the most common symptoms of menopause. As we've mentioned, the brain fog, but anxiety, depression, this real sense of overwhelm, someone who was previously very efficient, very capable, all of a sudden the slightest thing is too much. That real sense of overwhelm is quite commonly reported. The mood swings that can be extreme. We fluctuate from that rage, someone chewing is like a red rage comes down, or a colleague says just one wrong thing on the wrong day, and that rage comes out of nowhere. Or we have the sadness or the tearfulness. I mean, crying at TV adverts. I've cried at McDonald's adverts since being menopausal. I mean, madness. And this obviously then all affects your work, your relationships, your self-confidence. You start questioning who you are. Why can't I control this? Why can't I get these thoughts out? Why can't I get these words out? What is going on? And there is that elephant in the room, that when the brain fog is continuing, after we think we've gone through the menopause and maybe it's still there, there is that fear of, do I have dementia? I mean, I wasn't going to touch on that, but it actually is a big issue at the moment. There's lots of talk now that the stats of dementia is that by 2050 it's going to be way worse than it is now. And it's no coincidence that 2/3 of all diagnosed cases of Alzheimer's are female. They are women. And it absolutely is down to that protective influence of estrogen, sadly. So whilst when you get to that point where you're having the dementia symptoms, it's kind of too late then. The damage is starting to happen round about now, kind of 20 years before then. And it does start with this reducing estrogen and the effect on the brain. So absolutely now is the time that, even if we're just looking to improve our mental health now and our symptoms or the other symptoms of menopause as well, the things that we can do now, the lifestyle and diet tweaks, are going to help us mitigate against those risks of dementia. It is so important. I'm not going to go into dementia. It could be a whole workshop on its own, but you do need to be aware that, yes, whilst we're going, is this dementia, this mild cognitive impairment that we are experiencing at this point, that is the start of that inflammation and that damage happening. And whilst it's temporary at the moment, because there is a new form of estrogen coming in, that damage can happen if we don't take steps to kind of protect ourselves. So with mental health, it's not just the hormones that are the only factor. Our lifestyle habits and our hormones and our stresses in every day, they're all intertwined. It's really hard to unpick it as to whether it's happening because of the menopause or it's happening because life is changing. And again, at the moment, we're in a pandemic. It's really hard to unpick what is going on. And I think previously, GPs especially, they would brush it off and they'd say, well, of course you're having these issues, and of course you're feeling like this at the moment, it's just your hormones, as if that's a diagnosis. It is not. Or they'll say, well, of course you're experiencing these problems, of course you feel terrible, because you're a woman. Being a woman is not a diagnosis. It is not. We have different brains and different hormones to men, but men do have low levels of estrogen, they have testosterone, and we have testosterone too. We all have the same stress hormones, the same thyroid hormones. We shouldn't just be brushed off by saying, well, it's just your hormones, or, well, you're just a woman, and so suck it up. And this is why this kind of knowledge is so important, so that you can advocate for yourself and know how to take back control and not just be a victim of, well, it's just my hormones, or it's just, oh, I'm just a woman. It's about kind of taking back that control for yourself. So hormones, maybe you guys know this, so I'm just going to quickly rush through it. So basically our estrogen is rising and falling erratically because our ovaries are starting to shut down that production of there's two forms of estrogen. The ovaries are starting to shut down producing estradiol, which is the estrogen we have when we are in those middle fertile years. And it's shifting over to become a new form of estrogen, which is less potent and so has less protective benefits, but it still does give us some low-level benefits of estrone, or it's sometimes called estriol. But this is produced not in the ovaries, but in the adrenals, which sits above the liver. So that's why it's so important at this point to look after our liver health and our stress levels, because the adrenals also make our stress hormones. So if they're busy making too many stress hormones, they're going to shunt the sex hormones and this new estrone or estriol to the side and go, we can do without that for the moment because we need to deal with this stress. And we really want that estrone. We really want it. So post-menopause, the new source of estrogen becomes the estrone, which is a lower level. So whilst it kind of decreases, we're not left with nothing at all, but there is a bit of a gap whilst that transition the hormonal transition. It's almost like an energy transition, and there is a bit of a gap whilst the ovaries switch over to the adrenals of producing this different kind of estrogen, which is why sometimes even 10 years after the cessation of your periods, these symptoms are still happening, because we're still going through this fluctuating change of forms of estrogen and the levels of it as well. So, I mean, estrogen receptors are found throughout the body, and I'm going to go on to there are lots of them in the brain. So usually we assume that menopausal symptoms are because of the decrease in estrogen, but actually most of the symptoms are through estrogen dominance. And if you can see from the graph, yes, the estrogen drops, but the progesterone drops faster and more rapidly. And that then puts us into an imbalance. So yes, your estrogen is lower than it used to be, but your progesterone has dropped drastically. Progesterone is our happy hormone. It's our calming hormone. So when that's deficient, all of the symptoms which we associate with, oh, it's because I don't have much estrogen, is actually because your progesterone is so low, and progesterone helps us feel calm. So all of these symptoms, your anxiety and your depression, your mood swings, headaches, the sleep problems, the insomnia, the bloating, the weight gain, the libido problems, the fatigue, the brain fog, it's all down to the progesterone being so low compared to the estrogen, which is one of those myths that we go, it's just because you've got no estrogen. Actually, we can still be estrogen dominant with low levels of estrogen. It's that progesterone we want. Okay, this is the one that you wanted to see. So menopause isn't just a hormonally driven state. It's actually a neuroendocrine state. So it's the brains and the hormones working together. And as I said earlier, it's that kind of gap in the energy. So estrogen has so many different uses. It's used for energy metabolism. It's used for kind of sending messages. It helps with our sex hormones. It helps with mood. And in the brain especially, all of these blue areas that you see, those are areas of the brain which have estrogen receptors. Now, the estrogen kind of acts as a bit of an email or a letter, sending messages to the brain, from the brain to the rest of the body. And if you can see, a lot of these areas are the issues that we feel. So the hypothalamus is the regulation of your temperature and your sleep and your energy and your metabolism. We're going to have trouble falling asleep, or when you're asleep, you wake up and you can't get back to sleep. So your prefrontal cortex, the learning and the memory, so things start to slow down and we can't get that information in. The thalamus, your sensory integration. So we feel a bit uncoordinated. There's a bit of a delay. Sometimes, I don't know if you see it when you're driving even, there's a bit of a delay between what you see and your response, because there's that break in that kind of sensory integration. In the hippocampus, information processing, short-term memory, brain fog, mild cognitive decline, it's there in the hippocampus. So all of the adrenal system is that there is that HPA axis, the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis. The adrenals help with our arousal and our attention, anxiety, and that message has to go between the brain and the adrenals through those estrogen receptors, which is why, whilst there's the estrogen is dropping and we're just transitioning to this new estrogen, which hasn't quite come in yet and isn't quite doing its job, there's this kind of energy gap, and it's the brain which suffers the most, which is hence all of those mental health issues that we feel, the anxiety, the depression, the mood swings, the brain fog. It's all because our brain's kind of got a temporary gap in estrogen messages coming through. Okay, so far so depressing, yeah. Sorry, please, not all doom and gloom. So that's what's going on. But now it's time that we can take back control and make a positive difference. Because if we don't know what's going on, we can just be a victim to it and go, I can't change this, it's just terrible. But if you go, okay, I get it, I know what's happening, and I can do things to change this. So unfortunately, we can't stop time. We can't stop the menopause from happening. We can make lifestyle changes, which will affect how we experience the menopause though. And in turn, that will we can't make our children, but we can change how we respond to the changes and life stresses.
Donna,
yeah,
you've just got, I don't know whether everybody else had the problem there.
It just said it was an unstable.
Okay, so you might just want to repeat if you can remember the last couple of sentences, because I didn't get that.
Okay, where do we get to? About the lifestyle changes?
Yes.
Yes, okay. So we can't stop time. We can't stop the menopause from happening, but we can change how we experience the menopause, and we can improve our mental health symptoms by making some lifestyle changes. So the most obvious ones that we can control are exercise, stress and how we deal with it, diet and gut health, and sleep. And I know a lot of those look like they are symptoms of the menopause. So you go, well, how can I control that? But we can make changes to those things and improve them. Okay, first one, sleep. Sleep deprivation, hideous, really hideous, isn't it? And it has such an impact on the next day, and on maybe you need more caffeine in the morning to get going because you haven't had a good night's sleep. You maybe have that roller coaster of sugar cravings to try and give you the energy to make up for that lack of sleep. It affects your metabolism and your weight gain and appetite, everything. But we can change it. So think about when your children were small and we thought it was so essential for them to have a good sleep routine, didn't we? We made, it's like 2 hours before they went to bed, we were giving them a bath, we were giving them milk, we were reading them books, we were turning the lights down, we were making sure the room was the perfect temperature. It was a whole routine to get them to sleep, because we knew how important sleep was. Comes to us, we don't do it. We sit on our tablets until 12 o'clock. We're drinking coffee or alcohol until late at night. And then we go, don't know why I can't sleep. So it's really important to kind of parent yourselves again, to think about maybe giving yourself a new sleep routine, kind of like as if you're the baby now, because we need this sleep routine. The first step, a good night's sleep starts in the morning. As soon as you wake up, open your curtains, get daylight onto the retina, which will stimulate that natural circadian rhythm. In the morning, cortisol is high to wake us up and to keep us alert. Serotonin, melatonin are low. When the daylight hits the retina, it starts to stimulate that serotonin and the melatonin. We need that to keep building through the day so that by the time we get to the evening, we can sleep. So it's really important to get that as early in the morning as possible to get that circadian rhythm in sync. This is what no one wants to hear about, limiting caffeine and alcohol. So we've all been there. We're on that kind of treadmill of life, and we're using caffeine as a stimulant to keep us going. We're maybe using alcohol in the evening as a wind down, as part of our kind of our nighttime routine. But actually, alcohol is a stimulant. So yes, it may help you get to sleep, but I guarantee 2-3 o'clock in the morning, ka-ching, you are going to be awake, because it's a stimulant. And as soon as you're awake, that hot flush is probably going to happen. And once that hot flush happens, then the cortisol kicks in. The cortisol kicks in, the anxious racing thoughts kick in, and then we can't sleep. So hard as it is so helpful to just back off the alcohol and the caffeine. So maybe stop your caffeine after lunchtime so that we haven't got that stimulant in. And if it's alcohol, again, if you can't not drink in the evening, make sure it's at least a few hours before bedtime so that you give yourself a fighting chance of staying asleep through the night. Okay, the biggie, phones and tablets, social media, that constant 24-hour doom scrolling of news, that blue light from your tablets and your phones, it kind of tricks the brain into thinking it's still daylight. So it spikes that cortisol. That's not good for sleep. Plus, it's not great for mental health if you are constantly looking at all these negative stories in the news, maybe looking at social media, all these people living their best lives, and you're like, meh, I'm not. So switch it off. If you do have to scroll through, give yourself a cutoff point, like you did with your children. TV goes off at 7 o'clock. Stay away from it. Give yourself time to wind down and kind of process things, and then it doesn't affect things quite so badly. Okay, a nice practical one. Drinking tart cherry juice before bread. It sounds mad, but it's such a good source of melatonin and tryptophan, And tryptophan also helps the body to produce more melatonin, which induces sleep, and it's very calming as well. So it also helps with anxiety issues. So drinking tart cherry juice, so easy to do. Before you go to bed, make that part of your routine. So instead of your baby's bottle, give yourself that tart cherry juice. We spoke about this earlier. Magnesium is so good for calming the mood, preparing yourself for sleep. Magnesium spray on the soles of the feet is fantastic, or the magnesium salts in the bath. Getting it in through the skin is the best way. We can get some from food, and you can get oral supplements, but if your gut health isn't great, which it quite often in menopause it isn't, we may not be able to absorb that magnesium through the gut. So you can take that supplement and it's not going to go where you need it, where it's basically just going to get excreted back out in the urine. Whereas in spray form, on the soles of the feet, or in a salt form so that it goes through the skin in a bath, it's going to go into the bloodstream, and it's going to quickly get through that blood-brain barrier and help you sleep. As I said, stick into a routine. And at the weekends, hard as it is, try not to disrupt that routine. So if you usually go to bed at, say, 11 o'clock, don't stay up until 2 o'clock at the weekend, because we're just confusing the body. If you usually get up at 7 in the morning at the weekend, hard as it is, try and wake up at 7. Even if you just stay in bed, but you're awake, open the curtains, get that daylight onto the retina, but try and keep that sleep routine to keep that circadian rhythm in sync, and so that you don't get to Monday morning and try and wake up and go, cannot get out of bed. It's not great. And obviously regular physical activity. If we're not moving much and we're not expending much energy, sometimes we're just literally not tired enough to go to sleep. So just adding in regular physical activity through the day will help with the sleep. I'm going to whiz through. Stress, this is the biggie. So if you see the little meme there, almost everything will work again if you unplug it for a few minutes, including you. We all have to do this. Stress triggers hormones and neurotransmitters, which are produced by the adrenals. And as I mentioned earlier, this new form of estrogen, which we have post-menopause, the estrogen or the estriol, is produced in the adrenals. So we don't want the adrenals to be working overtime, kicking out stress hormones and not kicking out this new estrogen. So the less adrenaline, cortisol we're producing equals more available sex hormones, which equals fewer menopausal symptoms. Hurrah, yeah? Because what stress does is it activates the sympathetic nervous system, which is our fight, fright, freeze response. And prolonged exposure to the stress, it results in anxiety, overwhelm, metabolism problems, appetite changes, sleep issues, which is basically menopausal type symptoms. So if we don't control our stress, which there's lots of stress happens to us at this point in our life, not necessarily about the menopause, but just because life happens, the symptoms mimic our menopausal symptoms. If we add in the actual menopausal issues of the reducing hormones, it adds more stress. And therefore we kind of end up in this real inflamed state. And basically that is what menopause is. It is a temporary state of inflammation. So anything that we can do to reduce that inflammation is going to improve your menopausal symptoms, in particular the mental health issues. The brain fog is a big one with stress. So what we want to do is we want to be in the lovely parasympathetic nervous system, which is our rest, digest, recover system. So how do we do this? Breath work. Now, Nikki knows all about this. Diaphragmatic breathing is wonderful for stress relief. It's calming. It stimulates that vagus nerve, which puts us into the parasympathetic system. So think about your hypopressives practice. It is basically mindful, intentional breathing, isn't it? From the diaphragm. It's mindful, intentional movement with your postures and your flows, which I'm sure those of you who follow hypopressives, you may start your practice feeling a bit meh and not really wanting to do it. By the time you've finished, even if it's only a 10-15 minute flow, you're gonna feel better. You're gonna feel in a different place, because whilst you're thinking about breathing and moving, you can't think about anything else. So that stress has to go to the side. You have to unplug it, because all you're thinking about is the breath and the movement. So other forms of breath work, which are very simple, are things like your box breathing, which is literally just counting. So you count on your inhale for 4, pause, count 4 for your exhale and pause. And again, if all you're thinking about is inhale, counting to 4, hold, exhale, counting to 4, guess what? You can't think about anything else. And again, that then calms things down. It gives you the chance to kind of break that cycle. Meditation, relaxation techniques, things like doing a bit of a body scan of checking in with the body. Is anything tight? Is your jaw clenched? Is your shoulders up? Are we hunching in? Even are we clenching our toes? Is quite often. Yoga, wonderful. Listening to calming music or sounds, anything that again is just going to unplug you is going to be great. Touch is a wonderful stress relief. So massage, petting animals. Anyone knows if you're stroking a dog or a cat, you instantly feel calmer. Reflexology, could be the feet, could be the hands. We have trigger pressure points on the feet and the hands which correlate to the brain, to the adrenals, to the liver, to the ovaries, to the diaphragm. So if we can trigger those points, we can, this was mind-blowing for me, the lady I know who does reflexology, the yoga position here, we are stimulating the brain and the adrenals by doing that. Who knew? Things like hand holding and sex, they all release the mood and mind calming endorphins and oxytocin. It's that love hormone, the bonding hormone. It gets released in childbirth and when we're breastfeeding. And it's important to keep that going as adults. So holding hands, touch, anything like that, which is going to release that oxytocin, is going to be a wonderful stress relief. Aromatherapy oils, it can be diffusers, candles, part of your massages. Lavender, again, great for helping with sleep and for calming mood. It's a wonderful stress relieving scent. Bergamot, rose, lemon oil, chamomile tea as well. All great stress relief and so easy to add into your day. None of these are hard. They are all very easy to introduce into your life. Hobbies and fun and joy, we forget about it as adults. Activities such as singing, laughter, cold water swimming, again, they all stimulate that vagus nerve, which puts us back into that lovely rest, digest, recover system and calms things down. Things like humming and whistling, anything that's vibrational. That's why the diaphragmatic breathing is so good. It creates that vibration and it stimulates that vagus nerve. Stress is all about boundaries. So work, relationships, with yourself. If something isn't working for you, say no. Manage your time, however you have to. Write lists so that you manage your time, because if we feel like the day is taking over and we've got too much to do and it becomes overwhelming, we instantly think that we're under attack, that adrenaline comes out, the cortisol has to come out to manage the adrenaline, and hey presto, we're losing out on your estrogen, your progesterone, your testosterone, because those have taken priority. If we can manage our boundaries, if we can manage our time, if we can just say no, if you know that someone asks you to do something and you could do it, but it would be a real struggle and it's going to make you feel stressed and make the day go horribly wrong, say no. Okay, exercise. Everyone knows this. Engaging in regular exercise has been shown to improve symptoms of depression, anxiety, and mood disorders. It can improve critical thinking and memory, so it can clear that brain fog. Plus, it's good for you physically. So what's not to love? It's a win-win. Forest bathing. So it sounds a bit fluffy, but it's basically just walking in nature. Green spaces, forests, countrysides, blue spaces, like seascapes. They've all been shown to be beneficial for mood and mental well-being. And even if you can't get out, there is also research that images of green spaces and blue spaces have that same positive effect on our mood. So even if you can't get out and go for a walk, put a screensaver on of your favorite view of your favorite beach or your favorite country walk. If you take a picture when you're next out, put it as your screensaver. If you're feeling a bit overwhelmed, look at that picture. It has been shown in research that it does improve anxiety, depression, mood disorders. Mindful movement. So again, it's your hypopressives flows. It's that mindful movement. It's that intentional movement of your flow, your yoga, your Pilates, dance, anything where you have to think about just your movement and your coordination. Again, it kind of takes you out of that stress response, and it also helps with keeping those nerve impulses going through the brain, that we have to keep thinking about coordination, about where we are in space. So whilst you think your hypopressives flow is literally just training your core, it's not. It's your coordination, and it's keeping those messages going from the brain and keeping that brain firing. All good. Resistance training. So resistance training can stimulate human growth hormone, which again is great for mood and energy and alertness. Testosterone, again, energy, mood, alertness, clarity, memory, drive, and endorphins, happy hormones, which the more endorphins we can have, the more positive neurotransmitters we have circulating, the better those symptoms are going to be, the calmer the mental health is going to be. HIIT training. So we're short on time. Rather than thinking, oh my God, I've got to exercise and it's got to be for an hour and it's overwhelming. HIIT training is great because it's a shorter period of time. It's also been shown to regulate insulin resistance. When we are in this inflammatory state in menopause, quite often we are teetering towards insulin resistance. I mean, that's a whole workshop on its own, but we can regulate that insulin resistance with HIIT training. So short, sharp, intense effort. And that in turn will have a positive impact on your mental health. Steady state cardio. Again, it's that movement, regular movement, helping you to sleep. The only thing to say is that if you enjoy it, do it. If you hate it, guess what? If you're slogging away on an hour-long run and you are hating every second of it, you're not releasing any positive hormones, you're releasing more adrenaline, cortisol. So find something you love and do it. We're nearly there. Okay, nutrition and gut health. Is someone trying to ask a question?
No, it was just me. I just wanted to say that we are right up to 9 o'clock now. So
Okay.
I just wanted to make sure that if anybody had any questions, that we just allow a little bit of time for that, because people will want to go because it's 9 o'clock.
We're nearly there.
Right, brilliant. That's all.
I
did write you in the chat, but I think you were really in your flow and I didn't want to.
Yeah, I can talk. Sorry, I can.
That's okay, don't worry.
Okay, we're on the home straight.
Okay.
So nutrition and gut health, this is so important. The gut and the brain are very much connected, and the gut is often referred to as the second brain. You'll know yourself. If you feel anxious, you feel it in your stomach, your appetite will change, you've got the butterflies, you feel anxious. It has been shown that you can improve anxiety, depression, cognitive impairment by improving the health of the gut. So if there's a gut dysbiosis, which is basically an imbalance of the microorganisms or the bacteria in the gut, that is gonna affect your mental health. So several calming neurotransmitters are produced in the gut: GABA, serotonin, dopamine. And we need a well-balanced diet and healthy gut function to produce these. The estrogens are metabolized in the gut too. They're kind of broken down and redistributed. So any excess estrogens need to be eliminated through the gut, and if we're low on estrogen, I'll take you through this on here. If we're low on estrogens, some plant estrogens can mimic natural estrogens, and they can help shore us up. So if you're feeling post-menopausal, that you just still don't feel quite right, gut health is the key. So things like your pre and probiotics, adding in your fermented foods to add those bacteria in there, your miso, your kefir, your sauerkraut, tofu, tempeh. So we get that good balance of good bacteria. And then we need our probiotics, which feed those new bacteria. So we're thinking about a plant-based diet, vegetables, fruit, grains, oats. And the benefit of fiber as well is that it binds with the toxins and any excess estrogens we don't want, like the Zen estrogens from toxins, from pollution, from skin products, hair products. They can bind to the fiber and we can eliminate them, because we don't want those recirculating and affecting our hormone balance. And then if we're low on estrogen, some vegetables are actually phytoestrogens, which means they mimic our natural estrogen, and they can actually bind to those estrogen receptors and be used as kind of fake estrogens. Our body can use them. So we can kind of shore up our limited estrogen by eating the correct foods. So think about your colorful berries, your dark berries, your cruciferous vegetables, your kale, your cauliflower, your broccoli, the dark leafy greens, and also oats and organic soya products. We don't want to go too much down the processed soy road, but organic soya, your tempeh especially, acts as a phytoestrogen, and it can help to increase our natural estrogen levels and help balance some of those symptoms out. Omega-3, this is so important for brain health. So they are essential fatty acids which we can't produce ourselves. We have to get them from food. They help reduce symptoms of anxiety, they improve cognitive functioning, they reduce neuroinflammation. So that's, again, is going to help with those kind of mood swings, overwhelm, brain fog. Omega-3s are key. So that's your healthy fats. Think of your oily fish, your salmon, your mackerel, your nuts, walnuts, almonds, cashews, seeds, flaxseed. Make like a seed bar, add all these lovely stuff in there, getting the omega-3s up. Sugar, yeah, we all know this, but we don't want to change it because it's hard. But your processed cakes, your biscuits, your cereal bars, your sugar in your drinks, your alcohol, sorry. Again, it's a known trigger for hot flashes and brain fog. So if we can limit sugars in our diets, limit the processed foods, you're gonna improve that brain fog and your hot flashes. Water, the brain is 70% water, so any level of dehydration is going to affect cognitive functioning. So again, whilst we're in this temporary state of inflammation, we can help ourselves out by staying hydrated. It's so simple, but we don't do it, but it is so simple. Just keep that fluid intake up and the brain will thank you. Back to your healthy fats. We we kind of demonize cholesterol, but actually cholesterol is the building block to our hormones. So we need that, the good cholesterol, the HDL, the happy cholesterol, and we want less of the bad cholesterol, the LDL, which I call the lazy cholesterol. So the HDL is that building block for sex hormones, and it also lines the nerves and the cells of the body to allow those messages to flow freely. So as we said, the brain is kind of inflamed because those estrogen receptors are not getting enough estrogen hitting those receptors. So if we can keep that good cholesterol up, the HDL, we can smooth it, it covers the myelin sheath, and it gives a smoother, quicker passage of those messages from brain to body. So the good fats, as I've already mentioned, the omega-3s, but what we want to avoid is too many saturated fats from the animal products. So go easy on the red meats, go easy on the dairy, because they're going to tip you too far into the bad cholesterol, and what we want is the healthy cholesterol from like the omega-3s. Nearly there. Dark chocolate. Yes, chocolate is in there. We're not talking Galaxy or fruit and nuts, though. An organic, good 70% minimum dark chocolate contains flavonols and antioxidants. They reduce inflammation in the gut, they in the body. They're great before a workout because it helps with that energy distribution as well. So chocolate, we say no to sugar, but your 70% chocolate, we're good to go with that one. Vitamins, if you're, again, I don't recommend taking millions of multivitamins, but the things that we do need in menopause are your vitamin D. We can't get enough from sunlight at this time of year, sadly, so we do have to supplement with vitamin D3. Your B vitamins, which again are anti-inflammatory, they help with energy, they help with mood, they're good for the brain. Your vitamin C, which is going to help again with energy production, with immune system. It helps with things like a histamine response, which quite often happens in menopause. So things like allergies and skin issues and tingling extremities can quite often be relieved with vitamin C. Zinc and magnesium, but again, as I said, magnesium, preferably a spray or in salts. And we are there on the last slide, you'll be pleased to know. So basically the takeaway message is what's good for the brain is also good for hormonal balance, metabolic health, gut health, heart health, and your musculoskeletal health. Lifestyle strategies that we can control and that will absolutely improve your experience of menopause: nutrition and gut health. Improve your sleep, get that sleep routine, treat yourself like you treated your children, and give yourself that sleep routine. Movement, exercise, stress management, keep those stress levels down, keep that inflammation down. We're already inflamed, we don't need to add more fuel to that fire. Stress management techniques, your meditation and your breath work, and joy. Find something that you love and do it. So if you can control your controllables, you can live well through this menopause and beyond. We've got another 30, 40 years here. We might as well enjoy it. Done.
Amazing. Thank you. That was really...
It was really long. I'm so sorry.
That's okay. I was writing lots of notes.
Oh, are you? So
Carolyn,
hopefully I covered some of the questions from the start, specifically about brain fog and about why you maybe feel an old lady after the periods have stopped, and it is because of that kind of change in estrogen swap over. Is there anything else people want to...
there's a few things from Caroline, but she's disappeared.
Oh, okay.
But I can read. So in the she was obviously typing away in the
chat.
She just said that obviously when you were talking about diet, that she's a carnivore. I thought she might bring this up. She just literally eats meat, and she says that it was the best dietary change she ever made, and she's sure this is why her menopause was as good as it's been. So yeah, I mean, it's it's obviously that's what works for her, and that's quite extreme. So, and she's not here to kind of talk to you about that. But
it would be interesting to know whether she is eating mainly red meat, or whether as a carnivore she's eating maybe the lean whiter meats like your chicken and your turkey and fish.
I think actually if she was here, she eats raw meat.
Okay.
So yes, I know Caroline quite well, and yes, she's quite an interesting character. But it you know, it is very interesting to kind of have someone who does something quite extreme like that, because obviously that's what's worked for her. It wouldn't be something that we generally would want to adopt, but or many people would find it healthy, but you know, that's obviously what works for her. She also said that she has to challenge you on the cholesterol. The only bad cholesterol is oxidized cholesterol. So LDL is one of the fats in the body used to carry the sterile cholesterol around the body.
It is, but we want that balance to be more HDL to LDL. We need both, but what we don't want is lots and lots of saturated fats, so that the LDL comes up and takes over the HDL, because the HDL is actually the more beneficial. We need both, but we don't want that balance to go too far on the LDL. So she is right, the LDL is necessary, but what it is about the balance of which one do we want to be more, which is the HDL.
Sure. And then Aisha says, what do you think about tofu? Is it good soya or not really recommended? Because she said she hears soya is very bad because of hormones.
So your lots of processed soya, like if you're drinking lots of soya milk, that can be quite imbalancing. Things like tofu, if it's an organic tofu, then it's okay, but you don't want to have too much of it. But a good quality organic tofu is fine, and your good quality organic tempeh is great. It's things like when they make these vegan burgers out of lots of soya things, and it's highly processed and it's highly manipulated. That's the soya that is not great at all. That's what we want to steer away from. So people who are kind of going into veganuary and thinking that they're going plant-based, if you're going to be plant-based, be as natural and organic as possible, rather than being kind of a processed food vegan, if that makes sense. So yes, tofu is not terrible as long as it's good quality tofu, and you don't want to be eating every day.
Awesome. We lost Diane. She did say goodbye. Okay. Does anybody else have any questions? So for me, you talked about tart cherry juice. I'm all about sleep at the moment, because I'm tending to find that I wake up ridiculously early and just get up, really, because
you can't get back to sleep.
By the point of lying there. So the other thing for me is talking around hypopressives, I found has come through the menopause, is nocturia, which is getting up to go to the toilet at night more often than I should do. And I think that, like I say, having done hypopressives and got rid of my incontinence, I'm not incontinent, but just having that urge all the bloody time I wake up to go to the toilet, and I'm sure I'm not the only one, is just really frustrating. So what it means for me is that I don't probably drink as much fluid as I should do for my health.
Yeah, that's quite common, because sometimes that lack of estrogen means that we have pelvic floor issues. Maybe we've sailed through and been fine until we hit menopause, and then all of a sudden people find that they have stress incontinence or urge incontinence.
I mean, in terms of me, I'm under control with that throughout the day. I don't have any issues whatsoever. It's just that, you know, I can be fast asleep and then wide awake and be like, have a trigger to go to the toilet. So I'm just thinking that if I'm drinking,
is it that you've woken first and then you get that urge, or is it the urge to wake?
I could be in a dream and then I can literally set my watch to the time that it gets me up, usually just once a night. It's around kind of 130.
Okay.
So
you've been limiting your
people are like, oh, you should try this tea, you should try that, and you should try this calming stuff, and you should do, but I can't do anything where I have to drink anything, because psychologically I'll have a full
It's
bladder.
going to wake you up to need to go to the toilet.
Yeah. So with the cherry, is it something that you would drink before you go to bed, or is it?
Yes. Maybe 30 minutes to an hour before going to bed, so it has a chance to obviously get into the bloodstream and start working. I mean, if you're having that problem, it might be a case that possibly adding in those phytoestrogens will balance out your estrogen, because if you're not having your cycles anymore, your estrogen is kind of getting quite low, and maybe that new form of estrogen, the estriol hasn't quite kicked in, and even if it does, it's not going to be as strong. So it will affect things like, you know yourself, the pelvic floor, how sensitive it is, and also the lining of the bladder can be quite sensitive to that as well, to that lack of estrogen. So it might be a case of just trying to add in more of your phytoestrogens, your plant estrogens, to see if you can balance things out a little.
Well, I found when I was taking more soya, it made hot flushes, like literally as soon as I had it, it would bring hot flushes on. So I'm really sensitive to a lot of things. I'm mentioning all of this because I'm hoping that anybody that's watching this as well will be thinking, yeah, that's me too. and
in which case, maybe you have lots of, I don't know, kind of your skincare routine or anything, maybe there's lots of kind of Zen estrogens, the toxic estrogens which are possibly floating around in your system, so that then any other estrogens you add in send you way off balance.
Yeah, possibly, but I mean, I'm pretty good with what I put on my skin. So yeah, I don't know. Anyway, I'll let someone else jump in with a question.
Any other questions?
Give us a wave if you've got a question.
Anyone?
Abby, you just need to unmute.
Abby.
That's it. Unmute, Abby.
Hello, Abby.
If you ask Abby to unmute,
there we go. That was just me saying, I tried to put a message, say, sorry, I've got a crash. I get up at 5:30 for work, and okay, I'm completely shattered.
Sorry, we're winding up now anyway. That's fine.
So sorry, I was like,
great to see you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming.
No, that's great to see you. Thanks, Abby.
Thank you. Cheers.
Donna, if you hand the meeting back to me, if you haven't already.
Okay. This is my, I might need my
three little
I need my 15-year-old IT technician.
3 little dots next to my
Yes, we go.
That's it. Drop down box, and it says
check host.
That's it.
Check host. Here we go. Did it myself. Ha.
Awesome. So I'm just going to wrap it up. Some great information there. Thank you so much for taking the time to put that together. Amanda and Aisha, any more questions before we go?
So I did just want to ask about the progesterone imbalance.
Yeah.
Why, if that's the case, you say that the problem is more about too much estrogen, why on HRT do they want to give you more estrogen if actually the problem is too little progesterone?
Usually they should give you progesterone alongside the estrogen, unless you haven't got a womb, in which case then they don't give you the progesterone. Yes, your estrogen is low, so they do give you more estrogen, and sometimes it's important to challenge that, or to maybe ask for the more controllable form, like a gel rather than a patch, because a patch is a kind of a preset dose that you put the patch on and that's what you're going to get, whereas with a gel you can control it. So if you feel that your estrogen is swerving too much the other way, you can reduce your dose of the gel quite easily, and that might then bring your progesterone back into balance with it. But I mean, your progesterone is going to be low but they want to give you the estrogen because of the health benefits of that, because it's heart protective and it's brain protective and it's bone protective. So they do want to replace that for all those health benefits as well. But yes, it does affect that, making our progesterone lower.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But if you, again, things like your resistance training, your strength training is going to increase your testosterone, and that's going to counterbalance that effect. So your testosterone can also shoot across and become progesterone. So if you can increase if you can increase your testosterone through doing strength training, you can also help mitigate that estrogen imbalance as well.
Thank you. Great.
Does that help?
Yes,
wonderful. Thank you so much, Donna. It's been a pleasure talking with you. I hope you enjoyed putting this presentation on. We'll say good night now.
Yes.
Thanks everybody that joined me, and anybody that's watching afterwards. If you want to check out anything to do with Donna, there were links on the slide, so just go back. I'll also share the links in the group. And
there's a closed Facebook community that I have as well, so I can put that link in as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And any offers that you might be offering, if you send over to me, I can share with anybody, and hopefully we'll get you hooked up. All right, amazing, great. Well, it's been lovely chatting with you all this evening, and I will leave you there now and say goodbye.
Bye.
Take care. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.